So yes, I was lucky enough to head over to Las Vegas for the Power Platform conference. It's third year running, so it's quite a new conference for Microsoft, but it targets the areas that we work on specifically for you as clients. So it was a perfect conference to be heading to and a great opportunity to share some of the learnings that took place during that time. I was in Vegas for 8 days. 6 of those were conference days, and lots of learning. I do want to try and make the presentation more of a personal one as opposed to a learning session, but there are lots of learnings in here as well. So we'll see what we get through. The videos that you're seeing running at the moment, the one in the middle there is the Microsoft video from the time there. So you can see it was quite a large conference. There were 6,000 attendees at the conference from all parts of the world. Yes, predominantly the States, but there were all nations represented. I got to join together with one of the Australian groups. They took on a token Kiwi, so they were adding an extra state into the mix for Australia. The video on the right-hand side has got photos and videos from my experiences there. So the different people that I've met, the things that I was involved in, a lot of the people photos that you're seeing, they're the big names in the Power Platform. They're our superstars, if you like. So being able to see them in person was something quite special. And I got to meet quite a few MVPs and do the girly thing of, can I please have your selfie? So that was a great experience being there. I was also able to be involved, and there were some women in tech private meetings that took place, again with some of the big names from Microsoft present. And that was a real eye-opener, and just looking into their world and how they do things. So while it was Power Platform, there was a whole lot of other things that were taking place as well. So let's kick into the slides and start to get into the meat of it all. So it's called the Power Platform Community Conference. Previously, it was called Microsoft Power Platform Conference, but they decided that it's us as a community that are making and building all these apps, and so they wanted to recognise that. So they've changed the word from Microsoft to community, hence the name change there. It covers the tools that we work with a lot at Custom 365 when we're building solutions for yourselves. So ones that you'll be familiar with are the Power Platform, where we're working with Power Automate, Power Apps, Power BI, and Power Pages. New to the mix in this space is the Copilot and Copilot Studio, and it was a big focus on it this year. Last year too with Copilot, but this year Copilot Studio was a massive focus, and I'll touch on some of the aspects on that. We also do integrations and automations in the apps that you're using on a regular basis, so SharePoint, Teams, and Office apps. So it really does cover the wide spectrum of what we do as work for yourselves. From the Microsoft perspective, the conference is a platform for them to launch their new tools and features. So we were hearing firsthand what those features were before it went public. Now, some of those features have gone public, so you may have heard about some of them since I was there, because of course I took a wee holiday before I got back here. There were workshops and sessions with experts to learn how to work with the tool. So I did quite a few classes while I was there, and specifically on Copilot Studio, as well as aspects of Copilot. So for those of you that are keen to get in that space, I'm now well educated and ready to go with that one. It's also a chance for us to network with others in our field, which was really great. As I said, there were people from all around the world and using the Power Platform in lots of different ways, so we could share ideas with each other. And of course, they throw in a bit of time for fun in there as well. You may have seen some photos of me on a helicopter. We got to do a night flight on the helicopter, and I went to a David Copperfield show and all those sorts of things that you do in Las Vegas. Take my photo by the Las Vegas sign, etc. So, and actually they put on a concert for us as well with Deb for a Cabbie was there to present to us. the Power Platform Conference is an opportunity from our perspective for Customer 365 to be able to build the knowledge and skills within our organisation so that we can better support you as clients. It's also an opportunity for us to learn from Microsoft and the industry experts directly, which was amazing. I was being taught by the people that are actually building Copilot Studio, so I'm hearing firsthand how to work with the product. And yeah, you can't beat that. Absolutely amazing. And being the first to learn about what's coming next so that we're staying at the forefront of the knowledge in our industry. Microsoft's VP was there and he shared some of his visions. Now, his presentation was an hour long, so I won't go fully into that, but in terms of the focus there, his focus is that Copilot will become another tool that we use in the creation of our app. So at the moment, when we create tools for yourself, it's us creating those items from scratch, but just like you can use Copilot to work with the Word and Excel and Outlook, we can now be using Copilot to use the tools that we do and build those applications. So it's assisting us in building that. Now, it's not replacing us, which is great. We still have to have the knowledge and know that it's doing the right thing and feed it the knowledge, but it's helping speed up the process of getting to a viable product. They see us as being makers that will bring intelligence into the app. So we're still building apps like we used to, but we can add componentry into those apps that make it more intelligent for you to be using as well. So some of you I know have started exploring working with Microsoft Copilot for 365, where you're using that Copilot in Word and Excel and so on. We can start to bring that knowledge and the agents into the apps that we're building for you as well. And we can create our own custom apps to put into those, but I'll cover that a little later on in the slides. For the near future, he's talking in the next 4 years, he sees there being more natural language being used to build the tools that we work with. So that's speaking to Copilot and other tools to help it create the items that we're wanting to build. More graphical building, making it more accessible for low-code designers, having more AI components that are ready to go. So they'll build the components and we can add them into the apps that we're building, as well as more intelligent apps that come out at the other end. So now getting into the part that's more interesting for you, what's hot up the press, what's going to be pertinent to you. Now, there were so many features, as you can imagine, with 6 days of conference. There was a lot of learning taking place. But what I've tried to do for the presentation today is to pull out the items that will be relevant to you in the organisation. Now, there is a lot that is specific to the back-end work that we do on your apps that's probably not as interesting to you, but for Ian and I, we're absolutely buzzed by the things that you can do there. I won't focus on that today. I'll focus on what's relevant for you as a user, and we'll see how many of those items we can cover in the remaining time that we've got. So the big hot item at the moment is Copilot Studio. Copilot Studio is different to the Copilot for Microsoft 365, which is what most of you are probably hearing about at the moment. So the Microsoft the 365 is the one that connects with the apps that you use on a daily basis. Copilot Studio allows us to add on to that Copilot for 365 or to create bespoke applications. So some of you may be looking at the licenses for Copilot and going, that's quite expensive. It's going to be hard to roll out for the whole organization. There are opportunities to create a bespoke agent or bespoke Copilot Studio that sits inside your workspace and does the work that you need it to do, and you're paying a company license for that rather than a per user license, and it makes it more cost effective for getting that in. So you're telling that particular Copilot what you need it to do. We can ask it questions, we can get it to do workflows as part of it, and it's created specifically for your organisation. Excuse me. So that went public preview while I was at the conference. It has been in an earlier preview up until that point. I've put a screenshot there to show you what some of the things, some of the agents are that can be devised there. So Copilot Studio is what we use to create these copilots, and they're calling the copilots Copilot agents. And the idea is that they work alongside you. They're another worker in your organization, and you tell it what to do, and you tell it how much automation it's allowed to have, how much autonomy it's allowed to have, or how much control you need it to have. So you'll see there's a continuum there of simple to advanced, and there's another slide that I'm going to show you that gives another continuum as well. The Copilot agents boost your productivity by automating some of the tasks, retrieving information quickly. It integrates with Microsoft 365 for Copilot, and it enhances your workflow by connecting to your knowledge and data sources. So we can send it directly to the libraries you need it to be looking into. So for some of our clients, we're looking at getting Copilots to connect to their policies and procedures, for example. So it's just looking at that library rather than looking at everything. And it will then say if somebody needs to ask for information on a particular leave policy, it might then give them a form to fill out. It will then push the workflows that need to take place after that particular point. And you can see from the screenshot there what some of the other examples are. Now, this is my photo from the conference itself, so hence why it's a bit of a wonky photo. Apologies there. But it gives you a little bit of a feel for what Copilot agents are. So agents are AI assistants that can help you optimize your business processes and enhance productivity. And the agents can vary in their levels of complexity as well as the capabilities, depending on what you need. So this is the other continuum that I was talking about. So we're going from simple to advanced, but it's also going from retrieval to task to autonomous. So how much independence are you giving the Copilot? How much do you need it to come back to you for permission to do the next step? And you've got control over all of those. And you can see that we've got some of those items are generally available now, and some are going into preview. What a Copilot agent can do, it works in the background, or it can work in the background. It can be activated by an individual, but the option is there to have it work in the background. So you can get it to do things like when an email arrives from a particular customer with this kind of title, make sure you do this. And I'll talk through the McKinsey example a little bit further down in the slides there. We can get it to work independently / autonomously, so it can go through the steps without having to come back to you to ask it what to do next. Or you can ask it to come back to you for permission to do the next step. So you then approve for it to do what that next step is going to be. We can schedule prompts. We can send requests to others to approve. The full automation is possible if that's what you want to do. And the one that I just mentioned, where we can require that Copilot responds to a user and ask for confirmation to proceed to the next step. Now, McKinsey, yes, I know they're a big company, but all of what we're learning in the big company can be applied to the SMB. So don't be put off. All of this is fully able to be done in the SMBs. In fact, it's quite a cost-effective way to get your business up and running with some of that automation. So McKinsey have an agent that helps them manage the projects that come in. So at the moment, without the agent, it takes them 20 days to process a new request for a project. So I want to run a project on XYZ, and then they need to work out who it is in the organization that's going to run the project, what skills they need to have combined, what team they're going to pull together. They need to go backwards and forwards with the client filling out forms and internal staff filling out forms, and that total process takes about 20 days to do. What they did was build an agent that the agent sees the email come in, and it then triggers off the next step. So it sends it to the appropriate person to fill out the form if that's what they're needing to do, or to give approval for this project to go ahead. So they have their defined steps. Now, the Copilot agent is also smart enough to work out what is the most logical order of the steps to follow based on the query that comes in as well. So you can set the criteria of the order, or you can say, find the best pathway forward to complete this task. If it's doing the working out of the process itself, it will provide the justification of why it followed that pathway, which is pretty amazing. So for each step, you can see exactly what's happened, and it's saying why it's did it. It also can look and see, I can see that there's a problem with this in the design of how you put this agent together, or an issue has come in that isn't being covered by our particular design. You should look to do X, Y, Z, and it will give you suggestions on what can be done in that space. So really powerful stuff, going from prompts through to automation. And here's an example of how that agent can look inside of your team space. So this is a field service agent. There's different buttons that your users click on, and that will then trigger the Copilot to start. So this is one where you're activating the trigger, but other ones are where it just knows that it gets started when, like I gave as the example of an email coming in. All right, so Copilot agents, that was a pretty big one. We spent quite a bit of time on that. The next one is Copilot pages. Copilot pages, for those of you that came along to our Loop webinar, this is the next evolution of the Loop side of things. So for those of you that have Copilot for M365, you'll be able to take advantage of this. And they're saying that they're going to be bringing it out to users that don't have that license as a free option. So fingers crossed that that actually happens. So we'll see what happens there. What happens is when you do a Copilot search, after the search comes up, you'll see a button in the bottom left-hand corner that allows you to click edit in pages, and it will take the information that it just gave you from the search and put it into a page that looks like Loop. And it looks like Loop because it is actually a Loop page. And we can then add additional Loop components into the page. We can share it with others, so we can have lots of people working on that page, just like we could with Loop, but we now have the power of Copilot connected to it as well. And there's no additional cost to that. So if you have that Microsoft Copilot license, you're not paying anything in addition. As I said, hopefully it's also coming to those that are using the free version of Copilot. So here's a quick video to have a look at how that works.
With one last click, Copilot pulls it all together for you. Pages is an entirely new pattern of work, designed for human to AI to human collaboration.
So some great stuff there. It is still in its infancy. So for those of you that do have that Copilot for M365 license, you may come across a couple of roadblocks as you're working on it. But as with everything that starts new, it will grow and add more features to it. So yeah, watch it grow, watch the space. While we were at the conference, Copilot enhancements were announced. So these go out generally worldwide. So they timed it for our conference. And so I thought it was an opportunity, excuse me, to touch on some of those enhancements. And while they sit under the Copilot enhancements, some of them are also enhancements that don't require a Copilot license. So for those of you that don't have the Copilot license, don't tune out. There are some good things still in amongst it all as well. So some of the headliners that came out, again, it's my photo there, so it's a little bit wonky. The first one is OneDrive. OneDrive has some additional features that allow us to work with the AI without opening the files, and I'll drill into that a little bit further. Teams, we've got some additional features that are coming into the meeting recap. So for those of you that have Teams Premium, you will be able to access those features as well. So even if you don't have Copilot for M365, the Teams Premium will give you access. There's features that have come in for Excel, PowerPoint, Word, Outlook, and SharePoint. So let's quickly go through those because we've got so much to cover and not enough time to do it in. Right, so authoring with Copilot and SharePoint. Now, some of these features are related to Copilot, but some of them are just in SharePoint itself. For those of you that are working with SharePoint, those of you that we've done the editors training for, you will be able to use these features. Some of them you will need the Copilot license for. So the first is that there is design ideas. Design ideas you don't need the Copilot license for. So as you're creating your pages inside of SharePoint, it will come up with ideas for layouts for that page, helping you get your pages up and running a lot faster. Copilot has been integrated into SharePoint, so we can use Copilot to create your SharePoint pages a lot faster. So we can set a site template, we can tell Copilot to use that template, edit it using Copilot, and we can do things like, yeah, the page looks great, but can you change the tone of it to come across as more professional or as more friendly? And it will go through and change the wording on your pages. You can create your own library templates. Now, again, that doesn't require the Copilot licensing. The example that we had in the presentation was that the site can be created, an agreement app takes the information and pre-fills the web data. It sends out a request for signatures, and adds the signature in when the process is complete. So that's putting the automation into the pages, not just the design of the SharePoint pages. So similar to what we're doing for a lot of you in your solutions currently, but much better. Copilot in Excel, this is only for Copilot licensees. So the Copilot for M365 can now handle formulas across multiple sheets, which is great. For those that want to do more advanced analysis work in the spreadsheet, they've added Python-based analytics into it. So you can do some pretty amazing advanced analysis work inside that Excel space, and you just tell Copilot to do it and it does it for you. You don't need to know how to use Python, which is great. You can work with data that is not formatted as a table, whereas previously it did need to be formatted as a table. And there are more functions and visualizations that have been added into the Copilot space. Now, you'll notice as I'm going through these, it tells you where we're at with the release of it. So now means it's available now. Public preview means that it is available for you to test and use, but it's not for production use yet. So you can go in and play with those features, but if you are going into production, it's best not to use that feature at the moment. Copilot for OneDrive. We can do things like ask it to show us the recent files on a particular topic. This is within OneDrive, so we don't even have to go to our standard Copilot chat for it. We can ask it to summarize a file without opening it. We can ask a question about the files that are in our library. We can create FAQs from files inside our library, and we can ask it to include a quick summary when you share the document. So if you look at the picture on the right-hand side, when you share the file from OneDrive, it opens up a little box, this one here, and in the bottom right hand corner there's an option to insert a file summary, so that when you send that file share to somebody, it puts a bit of a blurb about what that file's about before they open it up, which is also quite a nice feature. Copilot and OneDrive carrying on, we can ask it to compare documents. So you'll notice in the background of the image here that there are two files selected. One is a Word document, one is a PDF, and we're asking it to compare the documents. It goes through, looks at the document, then creates a table showing the differences in each of the documents. So you can see nice and easily what's happening in those documents. And then you can ask further questions about those comparisons as well with the Ask a Question button. So that's useful if you're comparing different versions of a document or different document types, like this example is. Ian, let me know how I'm going for timing so that I don't make everyone late here.
You're okay. Yeah.
Excellent. Copilot carrying on. So this is just going a little bit faster on some of those features. So Copilot in Teams, if That's the one that people use most often. It's absolutely amazing for meetings in terms of summarizing your meetings and giving you what your jobs are to do. But it only ever did it on the meeting transcript. So what words were said during the meeting. Now it will also reason over the chat. So if you're chatting during the meeting, it will take the chat into account as well as the meeting transcript. Outlook coming soon, so that's late this year it will come. They are going to introduce Prioritize My Inbox. So it will look at what emails are in your inbox and work out which ones it thinks you need to prioritize in that list. And as part of that, so we don't know yet if it's going to be with that release or the one immediately after, but they're going to be also adding in the ability to teach Copilot what is important to you, so it surfaces those up as your priorities. So is it particular topics that you need, particular keywords, or particular people, for example? Copilot in PowerPoint. The narrative builder is part of the Copilot side of things, so we can draft an outline before we create our PowerPoint. But the second part, that brand manager, is actually related to SharePoint and PowerPoint combined. So within your organization, you can set up a brand manager to manage your company templates and pull in approved images and set up an asset library that can be called on from any employee in the organization. So even if you're not using Copilot, that is a really, really good feature to have coming. So keep an eye out for that. For those of you who are using Power BI, they are going to introduce Copilot into the DAX creation, and you don't need a Copilot 365 license for that. You just need your Power BI licenses for that. So it's similar for those that are using Power Apps. It's going to be a similar kind of tool that we have in that space. And a few things that you can do in the fabric space as well. Now I'm going to skip so we can get through some of these. Power Automate, for those of you that are creating flows inside of Power Automate, this is now outside of Copilot. We're just talking generally here in Power Automate. We now have 2 action panes inside the designer, which means that you can do things like copy and paste and things like that, which we couldn't do quite as easily in the past. So it's going to make life a little bit easier when you're creating those automations. They're going to be bringing generative actions in with the inline cloud flows. And so what that will do is allow you to put a Copilot instruction into the flow itself rather than a separate location. This is probably getting more technical in terms of the work that Ian and I do, but for those that may be doing some of the more complex flows, it eliminates the needs for switches and ifs, and Copilot is smart enough to work out the best pathway to follow to run through the actions in your flow, if you allow it to do that. RPA desk flows, we saw an amazing demo on this one. Now, just to explain what RPA desk flows are, what they allow you to do is if you can't make a connection between different pieces of software, we have the ability to record the action steps that you do in that bespoke application. So the screen looks at what you're doing, what you're clicking on, what the boxes are, what you type in, it records those so that you can then tell it to repeat those steps next time it takes place. And we've had that for quite some years now, but they've brought Copilot into that space, and they haven't just brought it in, they brought it in verbally. So we are able to go and have the steps taking place, so you can be clicking on everything, and as you're clicking on it, you're telling Copilot why it is you click on it and what has to happen as you're doing that, and it will then create the flow in behind that for you. So that was pretty amazing to see, not just because of what you can do, but to see a verbal Copilot in action as well. Which is one of the areas that Microsoft are looking to move forward in, and that's on my next slide here. So generally, I'm doing all right, we're getting there. General bits that came out of the conference is that the GPT-4o, with the introduction of that and the enhanced orchestration, performance has dramatically improved for those of you that will be using Copilot. It means that the Copilot responses are 2 times faster customer, which is pretty amazing. And their response satisfaction rate has improved by nearly 3 times. Now, the response satisfaction rate is when you do your questions inside a Copilot, when you give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down, that's what they're talking about in terms of response satisfaction. In the coming weeks, Microsoft is bringing the Copilot pages. That was that one that I said to you that maybe we get the free version, is bringing those to people that are using the free Microsoft Copilot, as long as you're signed in with your work account. So it's an Entra account, but we'll just call it a work account. If you're doing that, they're telling us that you're going to be able to use those Copilot pages for free, which is great. So as I say, fingers crossed that that's actually happening there. Enhanced studio capabilities for us making those special Copilot agents. There are some good improvements. I won't take you through that because it probably doesn't mean as much to you there. This one here, the multimodal options, is amazing. So at the moment, a lot of the interaction with the Copilot is text-based. You type in your question, it sends you an answer back. You might give it an image and it creates an image. So that has been happening for a while. But what we're going to be able to do going forward is feed Copilot more than just text. So we can give it images, we can give it verbal instructions and so on, and it will then perform the actions for you. Amazing features, and I put a comment there that it might seem like Copilot is replacing us, but it's not. Copilot, while it looks smart, is actually quite dumb. It knows how to follow logic. It knows how to string the information together. It's creative. It knows what to piece together, but it doesn't actually understand what it's piecing together. So it still needs us to provide it the information that it needs to check what it's doing, to do the sense check, provide the knowledge. So our jobs are still safe. Your jobs are still safe. Look at Copilot as an assistant for you in your jobs. And that takes me to the end of the presentation. And yes, I'm sorry, I am slightly over, but if anyone has any questions that you want to ask me, feel free to ask. And while we're doing that, I'll put the slide up for those of you that need to zap away. Our next webinar will be on sharing best practices in Microsoft 365. Any questions, Ian, that came in?
No, nothing has come through. Usually everyone's pretty quiet on the questions, but yeah, I think there's some really cool content coming. Just looking through that list, it's kind of making me think we probably need to look at doing a wave 2 of all of our solutions and maybe embedding some of that Copilot functionality into those. You think like our Smart DMS library to have those controlled documents and being able to leverage like a Copilot Studio to read those documents would be pretty cool. And even like health and safety apps, to be able to record those incidents and then have the Copilot step through all those phases for the resolution of that incident and tracking that could be a cool opportunity as well.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. And any processes that our clients are following that we can be looking to take the legwork out of those and get Copilot to help them there as well as another option, another opportunity, I should say.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the world's changing when it comes to AI. It changes every day, and it's just changing habits. That's the bit that we need to do, is think first about using some of the AI technology to improve our day-to-day. Like even yesterday when I asked you how to do something and you returned back going, well, this is what Copilot tells you to do. So I should, yeah, maybe focus on trying to use that Copilot myself to answer some of those questions too. But I do use it a lot more in my day-to-day work to create content and reply to emails and all sorts of things like that and plan my day. So yeah, it's a really cool functionality, and lots happening in that space.
Definitely, and it is going to keep moving fast, so yeah, keep watching and seeing what's happening in that space, and if you need help, get in touch with us.
Awesome. All right, I'll catch you all in about 6 weeks time.
Thank you all for attending. We'll see you later.
Bye.